My friends, the most important agreement in the world is dying right in front of you, and almost no one has noticed. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the three pieces of evidence. The first one happened on a stage over in China with a hot mic. The second is hidden inside a secret mountainside in Iran and was spotted by satellite in the last few hours. These are the images you're seeing now. And the third, the most unbelievable of all, is hidden in a detail of the American Constitution that everyone forgot. When you put the three together, you'll understand why Iran acts as if the agreement doesn't exist. At the end, I'll show you the agreement's text and the one-line loophole that explains everything, a detail no one is mentioning. Stay with me because each piece of evidence is worse than the last. First, today's key takeaway in 2 sentences. An agreement isn't just a piece of paper. An agreement is behavior. Want to know if an agreement is worth anything? Ignore the text and watch what each side does before the ink is even on the page. That's what we're going to do now, live from Israel, right where everything is happening. Let's go straight to the evidence here. On Saturday, the Iranian ambassador to China took the stage in Beijing at an event called the World Peace Forum and declared the following in front of the whole world, folks. Quote, "As a country whose territorial waters include the Strait of Hormuz, we will definitely charge service fees." He said that, folks. 3 weeks after signing an agreement that guarantees free passage through the Strait of Hormuz with no fees. And for you to understand the scale of the provocation, the Strait of Hormuz is the bottleneck through which a fifth of all the oil and gas on the planet passes. Whoever controls the strait controls the corridor that supplies the entire planet. When the barrel gets more expensive there, gasoline, diesel, freight, and food all get more expensive. The prices at your local supermarket are connected to Hormuz. And the ambassador explained, with an even more serious face, that it's not a toll, there's service fees to guarantee security and take care of the environment. Now think about it with me, right folks? Mandatory charge for every ship that passes through. If you pay, you go through, right? If you don't pay, you don't pass. This is state piracy with an official stamp. Iran is doing with a pen what pirates always did with a sword, charging to let the ship pass. But hold on, because his second sentence is even better, and I quote, "We will definitely consider special treatment for the countries that stood by our side in difficult times." Pay attention, everyone. It's not a fee, it's a diplomatic version of the pirate's list of those under his protection. Whoever swears loyalty sails with a discount. Those who resisted pay the full price. The United States responded immediately. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, declared that any final agreement will prohibit any charges and responded like this. Service fee or toll for Washington is the same thing, and neither of them will go through. And there's also an irony here that never made the headlines. Trump himself has already warned that if the negotiation fails, the one who will start charging a fee for passage will be the United States. Did you forget that he said that? As reimbursement, he said, according to him, for the services provided as the Middle East's guardian angel. Absurd, right, guys? But if you just got here, leave your like so you don't forget to do it at the end of the video. I can see that you forgot to do it, guys. Leave your like right now so you don't forget to do it later. In other words, both sides already treat the world's most important strait as a toll booth, both the United States and Iran. And world trade is in the middle, waiting to see who will send the bill. And now, the detail that went unnoticed in the coverage, and that changes a lot. Even now, during the supposed 60 days of free passage, Iran created a new agency, the Persian Gulf Strait Authority. And every ship needs to ask permission from that government agency in order to pass. Just look at the progression. First you ask for permission, then you thank them for the permission, and soon you'll be paying for the permission. It's the creation of a habit, and the world is going along with it without even noticing. And still within this first piece of evidence, because it has a second voice, while the ambassador was smiling over there in Beijing, look who was making their debut, right? They were making their full debut at the microphone. The new commander of the Revolutionary Guard Navy. We know why he's new, right? He's new because the previous one was taken out, removed from the board by Israel in March. And his first official message in office was this, quote, "Divine retribution against the terrorist United States and the illegitimate Zionist regime is not far off." Okay? On the table, service charge. On the microphone, divine retribution. The same regime, two faces on the same day. So keep this pattern in mind because proof number 2 shows what this regime did when they thought no one was watching. And this is where the secret mountain you're seeing here comes in. But first, 3 seconds. If you're already seeing what the media doesn't show you, hit the like button now and subscribe with the notification bell on. Guys, don't forget to turn on the notification bell because this story gets a new chapter this week and you'll want to be here when it breaks. Because the funeral ends and on Thursday, everything starts again. Proof number 2. And notice the difference. The first proof was shouted in a public square. This one happened in silence, away from the cameras, and was caught from space. Yesterday, these satellite images taken at the end of June of Iran's nuclear complexes were published, and the Israeli press analyzed each photo. In Natanz, the most famous complex, the picture is one of damage, destroyed roads, damaged access points, and electrical systems out of operation. Up to this point, we already knew about this, no surprise. The surprise is inside another mountain. A few kilometers from there, there's a mountain that the Iranians named in Persian as Pickaxe Mountain. And yes, that's the real name of the place, Pickaxe Mountain. Inside that mountain, carved into the rock, there's a complex that Iran has never officially declared. Analysts consider this complex one of the best-kept secrets of Iran's nuclear program, and what the photos are showing there is vehicle movement on the access roads and ongoing construction, and the reinforcement of the main tunnel entrance. Iran is working on the secret mountain, this one here, look, that you can see down here, underneath, Natanz, and above, this secret mountain. Iran is working on the mountain right now, at this very moment, 3 weeks after the signing. And in Fordo, another complex inside that mountain, another complex inside a mountain as well. The photos show piles of dirt and rocks scattered on the roads leading to the tunnels. And here, a lot of people are saying that several journalists and military analysts have offered an interpretation that changes the significance of these photos. These mounds would be defensive obstacles, but not against airstrikes, rather against a quick ground incursion. In other words, the regime would be preparing to make it harder for a commando operation to quickly enter that region. In other words, to try to remove the nuclear material, putting rocks in the way, sand, putting everything there to make it harder for them to reach that place quickly. And if this interpretation is correct, stop and think about what it really means. Iran isn't protecting ruins, it's protecting the stockpile. This isn't abandoning the stockpile, this is careful management of assets that they intend to use again at some point. And now the million-dollar question, can Iran do this? You must be wondering that, right? The memorandum requires Iran to maintain the status quo and prohibits construction at any atomic facility, any of them. So, according to the press, this here, in the Israeli press, this is an apparent violation of the agreement with the ink still fresh. And pay attention to an important detail, the official confirmation would have to come from the Americans who still haven't commented at all on these photos that were released. And satellite photos don't have any ideology, folks, so let's recap together. Proof 1. Iran defies the agreement publicly on a stage in China. Proof 2. Iran violates the agreement in secret inside a mountain. Inside a new mountain, right? The Shady Mountain. And now comes proof number 3, the one I promised you was the most unbelievable. Because it's not in Iran, it's in the United States. Proof number 3. A question started circulating widely in Israel and the United States about whether that paper that Trump signed, that amendment, that memorandum, is actually worth anything, right? If it has any legal validity. An Israeli jurist summarized the following in a radio interview. They'll celebrate for a few months, and after that, this will be thrown away. End quote. And the mechanism is very simple and devastating. According to the American Constitution, an international treaty only becomes law with 2/3 of the Senate. The memorandum with Iran never went to the Senate. It was signed by the president, and that's it. And the legal analysis from one of the main foreign policy magazines in the United States shows that the Trump administration itself should insist that the document is not a treaty precisely so it doesn't need Congress. But if it's not a treaty, it's not binding. And if it's not binding, the next president can tear up this treaty, this agreement, with a simple signature. And now, the irony of this story, right? The perfect irony, actually. Iran has already lived through exactly this scenario. Obama's 2015 nuclear deal also didn't go through the Senate. Do you know who tore up that agreement in 2018 with one stroke of a pen? Donald Trump himself. The man who today signs memorandums without Senate approval is the same one who proved to the world that a memorandum without Senate approval lasts only until the next election. And Trump doesn't even try to hide that, folks. He doesn't even try to hide that this is happening at all. On the day of the signing, he described the document like this, quote, "It's a memorandum of understanding." If I don't like it, if they don't behave, we go right back to how it was before. End quote. That's the guarantee that sustains peace in the Middle East today, the will of just one man, right? Whatever he decides from now on. Before the promised grand finale, there's a story from the middle of all this that also deserves attention. A story with a human cost. The US Navy has ended the search for a serviceman missing in the Arabian Sea since Wednesday. He has been officially declared dead. His helicopter, which was operating from the aircraft carrier George Bush, made an emergency landing in the water. 4 crew members, 3 were rescued, and 1 remained in the sea. And why was he there, you ask? What was that helicopter doing there? Because that aircraft carrier is exactly monitoring the strait we talked about earlier. That's his job. That service member was serving on the mission to keep open the corridor that supplies the planet. And how did this happen? The official version, emergency landing. No evidence so far of hostile action. The investigation is ongoing, and there are 3 interpretations circulating. The technical one, landing a helicopter on water is one of the most dangerous maneuvers there is because the aircraft is too heavy on top and flips upside down in seconds. And the wear and tear, it was the most recent in a series of American military aviation accidents in just a few weeks, with half of the combat fleet concentrated in the Middle East and machines and crews pushed to the limit. Guys, these people have been here in this place for a long time and everyone is at their limit. And the question everyone quietly asks is, was it really an accident? That it was an accident. And another American helicopter crashed in the Strait. And in that case, Trump himself claimed it was Iranian fire. But here, let me be precise here. In this current case, for now, there is no evidence of any hostile action. There is suspicion, but suspicion is suspicion and fact is fact. If the investigation changes the situation, you'll know about it here right away. The point is that maybe Trump blocked the disclosure of what really happened there until the funeral was over, right? Until the World Cup was over. Who knows? Until they get through that part, right? So they don't try to control the situation over there. Yeah. There's also this version going around that says it was actually shot down, but they decided not to comment. What remains certain is that a soldier lost his life keeping the strait open. While Iran announces it will charge a fee in that same strait, the contrast speaks for itself. Let's head over for the grand finale. You must be curious, right? Why? Why so much boldness from a regime that took a beating, that buried its own leader this week? Why does it need to hide the successor? The answer is in the gap I promised you at the beginning. The memorandum says that passage through Hormuz is open and free of charge for 60 days. Is that written there, folks? And you know what the text says about what happens after those 60 days? Absolutely nothing. There is nothing. Nothing. The 2015 agreement had 159 pages of technical details. This memorandum has just a few pages. It seems to be 4 pages. Hastily put together. And Iran read this document with a magnifying glass, found the loopholes, and is taking advantage of them. In other words, if they can't charge for 60 days, after those 60 days, they can start charging. The Hormuz fee slips through a loophole in the text. The construction on the mountain tests the oversight, and the weakness in the Senate ensures that if everything falls apart, Iran can say it never had any treaty. And there's more. The atomic commitment that Iran signed, the one not to develop the bomb, is the same promise it was already making in 2015 word for word, in essence. In other words, the memorandum didn't get anything out of Iran that it hadn't already promised before. And an old promise, repeated by someone rebuilding a secret mountain, is worth what it's worth, right? And this is where it really hits home. Stop and add it up with me and see what this agreement actually delivers. Let's be clear here, folks. It reopens the Strait, which was already open before the conflict started, and gets from Iran the same guarantee that Iran had already given in 2015. In other words, the world went back to square one. And they called this a deal, a new deal, the deal of the century, like Trump is promoting to everyone, right? It's exactly the same thing. And that's why I still refuse to believe that the United States takes this document seriously, not because I have any secret information from anyone, but because none of this makes sense as a real agreement. No one would trade an entire military campaign for a strait that was already open and a promise that was already old. Do you agree with me? Unless the document was never really the objective. So my interpretation, and I want to make it clear that this is my interpretation here on the channel, is this. These 60 days are not a path to peace, they're a countdown. Iran uses the countdown to create facts, charge passage fees there, assert authority over passage there, do construction in the mountains, and the United States uses the countdown while keeping the option to say that the document was never valid. And Israel, which isn't even part of this agreement, watches knowing that the underlying problem remains untouched because the regime hasn't changed, the intention hasn't changed, only the scenario has changed. Take note of the 3 milestones from this week, folks. Thursday, the ninth Khamenei is buried, and the negotiations resume on the same day with the atomic issue at the center. This time, we're going to talk about the nuclear part. And tomorrow, Trump lands in Turkey for the NATO summit in the first visit by an American president to the country in 11 years with fighter jet sales on the table. Remember that he might authorize the sale of F-35S to Erdogan's Turkey, the one who's passionate about Israel. And from there, he goes on to meet with Netanyahu at the White House next week. They were trying to arrange for Netanyahu to meet with him before that meeting at NATO at the summit, but it's not going to happen. Apparently, it will really only happen next week after he returns from Turkey. And on August 16th, the 60-day countdown resets. 60 days counted from the signing, which was on June 17th. The text even allows for an extension, if both sides agree, to extend it a bit more, but the date written on paper is August 16th. And then, we'll find out if this agreement was a bridge or just a pause. And this morning, while I was preparing all of this for you, 2 updates came in that also prove the point of this video. The first one, straight from the Strait. The US military has significantly increased the number of flights over Hormuz in the last 24 hours. Look at the number of tanker planes here, guys. Check this out. Notice this. See the amount? There are usually 4, but now there are so many. Planes fly over this region constantly, day and night. American military activity is also very intense here. Just look at this. Another one here that left from Ben Gurion here in Israel and came back, just made a small loop. This here, guys, is an American fighter jet, okay? This is an American fighter jet. They show a different model of plane here, but when this type of model appears, it's usually a fighter jet. They're not going to put F-35 here, okay? They're not going to show that. But the activity here has increased a lot in the last 24 hours. And the reason explains everything, right? It's to make sure that these ships here, look, that the ships can use the route along Oman's coast instead of the Iranian route. Here is the coast. Look, just see how close these ships are passing by here, guys. Very close here, very close. This one is from India in this case. Look right here. These planes here are on this route. These planes are maintaining the security of exactly this route. That's their function. And the helicopter that crashed too, right? So consider what this means here. The agreement says that passage is free, but in practice, ships only pass because the American Air Force and Navy are on permanent duty there, guys. Clearing the way on the Oman side. What kind of agreement is that, right? Free passage that needs an escort isn't really free passage. It's an arm wrestling match, and it continues even with the agreement signed and the ink already dry, right? We can say the ink has dried. The Iranian route is up here. This is the Iranian route, and this is the route created by the Americans. The second update came from Jerusalem. The Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, made a point of stating in an official statement because everyone is blaming, right? Or crediting the United States for eliminating Khamenei. Many are talking, and Trump says it was an American operation. And today, Israel Katz came and said the following. It was Israel that took Khamenei off the board because the Ayatollah was leading the plan to wipe Israel off the map, and he warned any Iranian leader who tries again will meet the same fate. And about the shouts against Trump at the funeral, the minister said the following, quote, "These shouts are a disgrace and show the true character of the Ayatollah's regime behind the facade of suits and smiles." The facade of suits and smiles, what does he mean? Remember this image. It sums up the 3 pieces of evidence in this video. The suit in Beijing talking about service fees and behind the suit, the secret mountain. The promise of retaliation and paper that might be worthless. And to close here, the paper says one thing, the behavior says another, and when the paper and the behavior contradict each other, believe the behavior, folks. And there's a word in Hebrew that sums up this channel's mission regarding that agreement. It's emet. Emet is pronounced just like that, emet. It means truth, because a narrative is what they tell you. Truth is what the facts show. And here we stick to the facts. And I already know that some of you are probably writing in the comments, as always, right? Again, Iran. Again this deal, again the same story. Yes, my friends, again, and I'll tell you why I won't let go of this story at all. A magician's trick only works for a reason. While one hand catches your attention, the other does the trick, and you don't even notice. Geopolitics works exactly the same way. The worst deals in history weren't made under the spotlight of the international press. They were made while the whole world was looking at something else. And look at the timing this week, right? On one side, the spotlights are pointed at the coffin in Tehran. All the media is talking about is that. On the other side, billions of eyes glued to the World Cup, right? Currently, the whole planet is distracted, torn between mourning and soccer. What a perfect moment, actually, for pens to work in silence, don't you think? That's why I stay here, video after video, chapter after chapter, because staying uninformed comes at a price. Wherever you are, Israel, Brazil, Portugal, or elsewhere, people who stay uninformed end up admiring someone without ever knowing what that person did in the dark, or end up hating someone they've never even met. Because they read a single manipulated headline and stopped at the headline, you've definitely seen this happen. Maybe it's even happened to you. So, to understand this fight, you can't just look at one square on the board. You need to see the whole board, all the sides, all the pieces, including the ones operating behind the scenes. And only after that should you form your own opinion. Yours, not the one that was handed to you. Not even mine, guys. Because if you only look at one side, you're not playing, you're being played. That's what this channel exists for. And I'm here following every move, every satellite photo like these here. Let me show them again, these satellite photos. Every statement, if this video opened your eyes to anything, guys, leave a like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with your family and work groups because this story is big, it's big, and the media doesn't put the pieces together like this. In fact, they don't even want to. That's the truth. They don't put it together and they don't want to. That's the only truth. The distance between intention and action. As Fernando Pessoa once said, Angela wrote exactly that. Eunice, good morning, Davi. Good morning to everyone and have a great week. Thank you for the super sticker. 693 is my like. That's right. People end up forgetting to leave a like. Guys, Angolans with Israel. Thank you. Air of Angola, straight from Angola. Guys, if you just joined this live, if you just got here, go back to the beginning of this live. Go back so you'll leave here knowing much more today than before. Okay? So, do that now. So you can really understand everything that's happening in the Middle East straight from the source, right? And everyone is writing, what about the Brazil game? The Brazil game. Guys, I watched the Brazil game yesterday. I watched it yesterday. It's a shame, right? We had the chance to win this World Cup, but not this time. Not this time. I found out yesterday. I didn't know, actually. I don't follow sports. I really don't, guys. I don't follow sports. I don't follow the World Cup, but I thought it was absurd that yesterday I found out that Brazil's coach isn't Brazilian. How is that possible? 213 million people in Brazil, and we don't have a Brazilian coach. The most absurd part to me is that the coach isn't Brazilian. That's just my comment, my criticism, not disrespect. With 213 million people in Brazil, is there really not one good coach? That's all I have to say. Here's the result. This is Ligado from Mozambique. Ezekiel, thank you. How can anyone think Israel and the United States are gaining anything? How are Israel and the United States benefiting? It depends on your perspective, Rogerio. Where is the Iranian leadership now? The leadership that planned the end of the Zionist regime, right, of Israel all this time. Where are they now? You tell me. Where are they? So, if you look at it from that perspective, Israel and the United States won this war. If you think about it, those who were taken out lost the war. That's the truth. Now, if you look at it from the perspective of the survival of the regime, as I've always said, as long as the regime is still standing, for me, we lost the war. Because that's how they see this story. As long as they stay alive and standing, they'll keep being victorious. That's what they believe. That's how they believe true victory works. It's staying alive. It's the intact survival of the regime. Thank you, Rodrigo from Abu Dhabi. Is it very hot there, Rodrigo? Tell me. Very hot? Unbearable? Is the weather okay there? Because here in Israel, the weather it's impressive. Impressive, but it's good. The weather's great here. While in Europe, right, everyone there is burning up, literally burning. Here in the Middle East, at least in Israel, the weather is mild. It's even cold in the mornings here in the Judean mountains. This has never happened before, guys. It should be very hot already, but it's not. That's how it should be. But I know it's boiling in Europe and in Abu Dhabi. Thank you for the information. Hey, I finally caught it live. Trump is getting ready. It's only a matter of time. Look at these little planes, guys. They're still flying around. Let me show you. Here are the ships in the Strait of Hormuz. This is live. Look, this just moved. Live, guys. Real-time movement, okay? These are the ships that refuse to pay Iran absolutely anything. On this other side, there are ships that are willing to pay Iran for refueling. So this type of plane here is not monitoring the ships. It's refueling fighter jets that are patrolling this region here. All of this here, guys, is patrolling in case any danger comes, right? If something happens, any immediate Iranian threat. Here, it's exactly the same thing. This is before and after the Strait for those entering or leaving. Take a look. This one is here in the United Arab Emirates doing training here, or training or refueling. Take a look here. Look. But it has intensified a lot here in the last 24 hours. More have appeared here in Jordan. Another plane is leaving Israel. The movement in the region continues, and more planes are arriving in the Middle East. Take a look. This one's already in Greece, look. More here. They keep arriving in the region. Cargo planes and refueling planes keep arriving in the region. In other words, everything stays the same, right? That's the real indicator. When we see all these planes gone from here, and this airspace completely clear, with only passenger planes, then we can really say it's over. But for now, everything is working normally here. Take a look. Aviation is normal and the airspace is open. Just look at how many planes are in the area. When you look like this, you hardly notice, right? But it's only the American planes you see. Iranian airspace. They said it would be closed, but I can see 2 planes here. And even in Tehran, things are operating normally. This is the current situation in the Middle East. My friends, this is the live stream for now. For those who joined halfway through this live stream, go back to the beginning, watch from the start, and really understand what's happening here. You need to go back to the beginning, guys. This board isn't just a simple game. It involves China, Russia, and much more. Yes, of course. Many bad things have happened, but at least this Sunday, something great happened with Brazil out of the World Cup, according to Mauro Lobo. Congratulations, Davi, for the coverage. In Portugal, it's much better today. Did it drop almost 20? Did it drop to 20 degrees now? Wow, that's a real sharp drop. It dropped nearly 20 degrees from 40 to 20, is that it? Here in Denmark, it's not very hot. It's mostly in Paris, right? That's where this is happening, in Paris and Spain. So that's it, my friends. That's all for this live stream. If anything serious happens in the Middle East, I'll be back at any moment. If not, we'll meet later in another live stream with more information. There's also a lot to share with you tonight with more information straight from Israel, straight from the source. I'll talk a little about the Gaza Strip and about Lebanon. Let's leave Iran aside, unless something new happens regarding Iran. If not, we'll talk about Gaza and Lebanon in tonight's live stream. For those who are interested, be here for the next live stream. Take care and see you then.